With these shocking words, Friedrich Nietzsche cemented his reputation as one of history's most controversial philosophers. Religious authorities condemned him as a nihilist and atheist. Academics dismissed him as dangerously radical. Even today, his name evokes images of darkness, chaos, and moral relativism. Nietzsche challenged the very foundations of Western morality, declaring that our most cherished values, humility, compassion, selflessness, weren't divine virtues, but psychological weaknesses. He advocated for a transvaluation of all values and the creation of a new human archetype, the Übermensch, or Superman, who would transcend conventional morality and forge their own path to greatness. Beneath this seemingly destructive philosophy, however, lies a profound truth about human potential. Nietzsche exposed the hidden psychological chains that bind us, chains we mistake for virtue, and offered a pathway to unprecedented personal power for those brave enough to embrace his insights. Born October 15, 1844, in Röcken, Prussia, Friedrich Nietzsche emerged during a time of profound transformation across Europe. The traditional religious order was crumbling under scientific discovery, and the old certainties were dissolving. His father, a Lutheran pastor, died when Friedrich was only 5, a trauma that would shape his philosophical outlook. As a young professor at Basel University, Nietzsche's career was cut short by debilitating health problems. At 34, he resigned his position and spent a decade wandering through Europe, writing his most significant works during this period of physical suffering and isolation. Nietzsche saw the changes of his time not as progress but as symptoms of a deeper crisis, what he called the death of God and the onset of nihilism. His major works initially received little attention. Only after his mental collapse in 1889 did his ideas gain recognition. The final decade of his life was spent in mental incapacity, cared for by his mother and sister Elizabeth, who would later distort his philosophy to align with German nationalism, something Nietzsche himself had criticized. "I am not a man, I am dynamite." Nietzsche's self-assessment captures the explosive nature of his insights about human psychology. Unlike philosophers who sought universal moral principles, Nietzsche saw morality itself as a psychological phenomenon, one that revealed more about those who created it than about any objective reality. There are no moral phenomena at all, only a moral interpretation of phenomena. This perspective led Nietzsche to his most controversial discovery, that conventional morality wasn't divinely ordained but psychologically motivated, often by the darker aspects of human nature. Nietzsche's analysis began with his distinction between master morality and slave morality. In his view, original value systems emerged from the powerful, who defined good simply as what they themselves were: strong, beautiful, fortunate. These masters saw themselves as good and those unlike them as bad, meaning merely different, not evil. In response, the powerless developed a reactive morality. Unable to express power directly, they created values that condemned the very traits that made the masters powerful. Strength became evil, dominance became sin, and self-assertion became pride. Meanwhile, the traits of the powerless, humility, meekness, obedience, were elevated to virtues. This slave revolt in morality achieved its greatest triumph in Christianity, which elevated suffering itself to a virtue and condemned the natural expression of power as sinful. Through this lens, what we call morality often serves as a mask for less noble psychological impulses. The righteous anger of the moral judge might be a disguised expression of what Nietzsche called ressentiment, the vindictive pleasure the powerless take in seeing the powerful brought low. This insight applies today when we observe those who take pleasure in public shamings, deriving power from bringing others down rather than building themselves up. Nietzsche would recognize this as ressentiment in action, not genuine moral concern, but a veiled will to power. The most potent concept in Nietzsche's arsenal was will to power, which he saw as the fundamental drive behind all human behavior. My idea is that every specific body strives to become master over all space and to extend its force, its will to power. Unlike simplified versions later misappropriated for political agendas, Nietzsche's will to power wasn't primarily about dominating others. It was about mastery over oneself, one's environment, one's fate. It includes the artist's drive to create, the philosopher's drive to understand, even the saint's self-overcoming through asceticism. Understanding this drive allows us to see past superficial explanations of behavior. The person who appears humble may be exercising a subtle form of power. The martyr may be imposing their will through self-sacrifice. The moral crusader may be expressing dominance through judgment. In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. Nietzsche's skepticism extended beyond individual psychology to societal structures. He saw how easily people surrender independent judgment to collective opinion, finding comfort in shared beliefs rather than confronting difficult truths. For those seeking genuine power and influence, Nietzsche's insights offer a crucial advantage: the ability to see past moral facades to the drives that actually motivate human behavior. Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. If morality is often a disguised will to power, how should a person oriented towards strength actually live? Nietzsche's answer lies in the revaluation of all values, creating new values beyond traditional morality. This doesn't mean simply doing whatever you want. Nietzsche had contempt for petty tyrants who merely inflicted suffering. True power for him comes from mastery over oneself first and foremost. He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. Before dominating others, one must achieve dominance over oneself, one's impulses, fears, and weaknesses. This self-mastery begins with honest self-examination. Every profound spirit needs a mask. Nietzsche recognized that we wear psychological masks, presenting different aspects of ourselves to the world. The first step toward power is recognizing these masks in yourself, the socially acceptable persona you present, the moral judgments you express to align with your group. Beneath these masks lie your actual drives and motivations, which may be very different from what you publicly profess. This self-knowledge must be ruthlessly honest. The most common lie is that which one lies to himself. Lying to others is relatively an exception. Most people never achieve genuine power because they remain deceived about their own nature, subscribing to moral ideals that contradict their actual psychological drives. Once you understand your true motivations, you can begin the work of self-creation. Rather than adopting values unconsciously from society or religion, you consciously craft your own standards of excellence. Become who you are was Nietzsche's formula for this process, discovering and expressing your unique nature rather than conforming to external expectations. This self-creation requires what Nietzsche called the discipline of suffering, using life's inevitable hardships as opportunities for growth rather than excuses for weakness. "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger" isn't just a motivational slogan. It's Nietzsche's formula for transforming suffering into personal power. The person who has mastered themselves becomes capable of amor fati, love of fate, embracing everything that happens without resentment. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. The noble soul has reverence for itself. For Nietzsche, genuine nobility comes from self-reverence, valuing yourself not based on others' opinions, but on your own standards. This creates a natural authority that others sense and respect. Consider how different this is from seeking approval. Those dominated by others' opinions are constantly reactive, adjusting their behavior to gain favorable judgments. The noble soul acts from internal standards, unconcerned with praise or blame. This independence naturally creates dominance in social dynamics. The noble type of man experiences itself as determining values. It does not need approval. It judges what is harmful to me is harmful in itself. It knows itself to be that which first accords honor to things. It is value-creating. When you no longer need others' validation, you become psychologically invulnerable to their judgment, perhaps the greatest power one can possess in social contexts. In practical terms, this means being willing to be misunderstood when necessary. The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. As you develop capacity for independent thought, many will fail to understand you. This misunderstanding is the price of excellence. The truly powerful accept this price willingly. They understand that widespread approval often signals compromise rather than greatness. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This independence must be balanced with strategic awareness. Nietzsche wasn't advocating for foolish rebellion. He understood the value of masks in navigating social reality. The art of dominance involves knowing when to reveal your true thoughts and when to wear appropriate masks for different contexts. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. While Nietzsche advocated for power, he warned against corrupting yourself in its pursuit. True dominance isn't about cruelty, but about creative force, bringing your vision into reality through strength of will. The highest form of power lies in creation rather than destruction. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. The powerful individual hears music others can't, sees possibilities others miss, and brings these possibilities into being. What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that resistance is overcome. True satisfaction comes not from comfort, but from expanding your capacities, from overcoming obstacles through your own strength. This is the joy of the creator, the adventurer, the self-overcomer. The most significant manifestation of Nietzsche's will to power is creating meaning in a world without inherent purpose. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. By creating your own values, you transform from a passive recipient of meaning to an active generator of it. The ultimate expression of power in Nietzsche's philosophy is the capacity to affirm life completely, to say yes to existence with all its suffering. To those human beings who are of any concern to me, I wish suffering, desolation, sickness, ill treatment. I wish them the only thing that can prove today whether one is worth anything or not, that one endures. This capacity to endure and affirm distinguishes the truly powerful from those merely playing at dominance. It transforms suffering from something to be avoided into the material from which greatness is forged. I am a forest and a night of dark trees, but he who is not afraid of my darkness will find banks full of roses under my cypresses. Nietzsche's philosophy contains much darkness, his unflinching examination of human psychology, his dismantling of conventional morality, his emphasis on struggle. But this darkness creates space for genuine light, for authentic joy, for true power that comes from within. For all his reputation as a destroyer of values, Nietzsche's ultimate aim was creative, to clear ground for new growth, for higher possibilities of human existence. His critique of morality wasn't meant to abolish values, but to enable more authentic ones, values created from strength rather than weakness. The secret of realizing the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment of existence is to live dangerously. Nietzsche's advice to those seeking power wasn't to accumulate external trappings of success, but to cultivate internal courage, to risk comfort for growth, certainty for discovery, safety for greatness. While his insights may seem dark to those accustomed to more comforting perspectives, they offer unprecedented power to those brave enough to embrace them. In a world increasingly defined by conformity and collective judgment, Nietzsche's emphasis on individual sovereignty remains revolutionary. The question is not whether you will express the will to power, that is inevitable, but whether you will do so consciously, creatively, and in accordance with values you have chosen rather than inherited. This is Nietzsche's challenge, not to reject morality, but to move beyond it into a realm of conscious self-creation and authentic power. What psychological masks have you been wearing? What inherited values might actually be limiting your potential? How might you begin creating your own meaning rather than accepting it from external sources? Share your thoughts in the comments below.